Hey Yvonne, welcome to the show.
Hello. Hi, Rachel. How are you doing?
Amazing. How are you?
I'm doing absolutely fantastic. So excited to be here.
So excited to have you. Let's jump in and tell us just a little bit about you and what you do.
Sure. My name is Dr. Yvonne Castillo, and I'm a pain-free movement specialist, and I specialize in helping women get pain-free naturally without having to depend on pills and procedures so that they can get back to their active and unlimited lives.
Amazing. How does that apply to us entrepreneurs?
Oh, this is such a good question. And I think it's one of those things, and I know you're a big advocate for health and how when you can really up level when you are devoted to your health. But I think unfortunately, especially with the kind of the hustle and grind mentality, it becomes one of the very things that people sacrifice, but it actually ends up being the thing that holds them back. I mean, when you're trying to lead a team, when you're, again, your relationships, your family, everything, how you perform, your ability to be creative, all those things are incredibly impacted by your health, your energy, all those types of things. And especially if you're in pain, it's like, good luck trying to, show up for your Facebook lives or try to launch a, course. I mean, if we got to show up for webinars, if you got to hold muscle or pinch nerve, like it's going to impact how you show up.
Yep.
So
Absolutely. Yeah. Like if you want to get results in your business, you got to show up and be high energy because people are attracted to that, especially online. Like you got to bring the energy, and you cannot do that if you're in debilitating pain, which can happen so easily if we're not taking care of ourselves, like you said.
Yeah.
And with all the sitting that we do trying to grow our business. So let's talk pain, how it's draining us, and let's first start with how can we keep great posture when we're sitting all day? Like, what are some of the things we really need to make sure that we're looking at and things that we can implement right away?
Sure, that's such a good question. So I'm a huge advocate of sit-stand desks. So I would say that's almost kind of like the first place you can start.
Can I show you mine?
Absolutely. Yeah, let's see your setup. I'd love to see. Yes.
I'm standing right now.
Yeah. I mean, and also too, honestly, standing gives you that energy too. There is a lower energy that happens when you are sitting, but I always have to kind of somewhat bite my tongue, but I would almost tell people, I would rather you be overactive than you to be underactive and sitting. Sitting is like the single worst thing you could do. And I mean, there's been so many studies where it's been associated with like higher morbidity rates and stuff like that. So sitting, I kind of tell people, is like the kiss of death. So a sit-stand desk is probably the best way you can start. I mean, they have some great ones out there, but honestly, like we all know, you can grab some boxes, you can kind of figure it out for yourself. Don't let that be a barrier, or if you're like, oh, I can't afford it right now. But in the long run, it's an investment, just like anything, it's an investment. So sit-stand desks are great. And always making sure, I think what a lot of people don't realize is just how the level of your computer is. So that makes sure that, again, that your environment works for you. I think oftentimes we're kind of being molded to our environment versus making our environment work for us. So things that are helpful is to make sure that, your computer is at eye level. Again, if you're wearing glasses, that's an important thing to make sure that you're wearing those things, that your vision is great, because oftentimes we're straining our eyes to try to see the computer. And that's a really big thing. So make sure that your computer is kind of eye level. And a great thing to do too, especially if you do have a sit-stand desk, is to have almost like, you can get them at like Bed Bath & Beyond, but make sure that you're on like a kitchen mat or like a softer surface, because just being on like a hardwood floor or tile is actually pretty hard on your spine and your back, and you can't absorb a lot of the shock. So that's a good little thing. Just make sure that you at least have a mat that you're standing on. Also make sure that you've got that your keyboard and what you're working at is at a good level. I know a lot of people are kind of doing the laptop thing, and, them being like, crunched up on your thighs or just leaning over. Having an actual desktop or kind of the split things is like the most ideal, because that kind of pterodactyl dinosaur kind of positioning with the keyboard is like not good for your shoulders, and it kind of makes everything roll forward. The head kind of starts to come forward, and that's where you start to run into things like, just headache, fatigue, and then like that kind of god awful just neck tension that we tend to see. And then also too, the body's all connected. So that'll, when you start to round forward, it starts to affect just the shape of your spine, low back pain, kind of that upper body tension and through there that we'll tend to see. So that's kind of for ideal kind of posture for standing. And then for sitting as well, make sure that you've got a good chair where you are supported. Again, same thing, the height and the level of your computer is really important. Positioning that your shoulders can be in a nice relaxed position. And then making sure that, again, the chair appropriately fits for you, that you're not kind of slumped back or you're not kind of on the edge of your seat and tilted forward. Having some lumbar support, as simple as just rolling up a towel and putting it behind your low back, can be helpful. And one thing to watch for when people have kind of armchairs is, again, make sure that your arms are kind of in a nice relaxed position, because sometimes they're up too high or sometimes people really lean on them. Honestly, the best thing you could probably do, and it's super easy, is just put reminders in your phone where you have like a little posture check. I mean, you should be getting up at least every 30 to 45 minutes, not just for kind of physical kind of well-being and switching things up, but also for your mental clarity. It's like really learning too. And I know you're a big advocate of being, again, entrepreneurs and being productive, but to set those timers and kind of chunk your time. So you kind of have these like power sprints, and then you're getting up and you're moving your body. Again, not only is it healthy for your body, but it's healthy for your mind, because then you start to lose focus. You start to drain yourself. So having those little posture checks. And I love to tell people to kind of just sprinkle throughout your day, like little stretches and stuff that you can do where it's like, okay, every 45 minutes, again, you don't have to do it for, an extensive period of time, but you would be surprised where you're just basically doing like, you're getting up, you're doing a reset. Okay, I'm doing a neck stretch. I'm getting up, and I'm doing a chest opening stretch. So everything to kind of undo what we tend to be is so rounded forward is we want to open ourselves up. And again, too, getting back to the energy thing is like by opening yourself up, you're expansive. You got this energy instead of just being kind of closed down and closed off. You'd be really surprised getting up, moving your body. And again, blood flow and all that kind of good stuff. Is really important. And you'd be surprised that those simple resets really make the difference. Like literally just had someone the other day, it was like, it was in whatever kind of entrepreneurial groups. And she was just saying, okay, please give me like grace and forgiveness. I'm not going to be able to get back to you guys because I just pulled my neck. And she's literally like, she's launching next week. So you can only imagine the stress of like, okay, is this going to go out again? Like, I can't show up for my people. I made commitments to it. And I mean, I know we're so hard on ourselves when you can't show up and perform the way you are. Most people will give you grace, but it is really hard. And then to know like unpredictable, like, well, is that going to happen again? So doing these little things, again, it's such an important investment to do in your body. You'll see your performance go up, your energy go up, how you show up will go up. And then also you'll just have the peace of mind, like, okay, I'm doing the right things for my body. So again, that like the bottom doesn't drop out on you. Cause I mean, you can only imagine what that would be like as you're going into these activities. Okay, I'm a guest for a podcast. I'm a speaker. Like how do you were just on the summit. It was like, how would that be if you had to show up for the summit, and you were so gracious for a charity? Like, what would you do if you couldn't do that?
I'm just thinking like as you grow and scale your business, you have more at stake because you have team. You're investing tens of thousands of dollars in Facebook ads. And it's kind of like all riding on you being able to show up and perform at your optimum, which is why as you grow and scale, it is critically important that you are focused on your health and your ability to show up at your best. Like I'm learning so much from Brendan Burchard and like high performance habits and showing up like my peak, like being at my absolute best. And so this is like so important because imagine you spend $50,000 on Facebook ads and you are doubled over in pain and you can't show up as you're supposed to because your back is out or your neck is out and you just haven't been taking care of yourself. Like this is when we like have problems, right? Like you gotta prioritize this stuff, prioritize your health and fitness. We had Tanessa Shears on talking about how to prioritize your energy with your
Oh, I
health,
love it.
your
Yeah.
nutrition, like, and so this is the other part of it. Like, how do you
100%.
prioritize your mobility so you can live pain-free and show up as your best self? So what do you do in a situation, because this happens to me every once in a while, I'm curious, where you
Yeah.
don't really have a choice of standing up every 30 minutes. Let's say
Yeah.
you're at a conference, which we haven't been to in like a year, but they're going to come up again like soon, hopefully. And
Yeah.
you're there. It's like an 8-hour day or whatever. And you're like basically sitting down. How do you take care of your spine then? Because those are the times when I'm forced to sit is when I get debilitating back pain.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm so blessed that I don't have to work in an office, because I
Yeah.
remember when I was in grad school, when I'd have to sit down for back-to-back classes, by the
yeah.
end, I would be dying. And I'm
Yeah.
just so grateful that I do have this business where I can choose when I stand up, sit down, and all of that. Because
Yeah.
I know not everyone has that freedom. But in the cases of like
Yeah.
you have to be sitting down, what are some things you can do to prevent that pain and keep mobile?
Yeah. So again, so then you're, and so when you're saying going for conferences too, so I think of almost two, it's like you're on a journey. So they, oftentimes the problem in that too is you're having to get on a plane to go there. You're having to
The plane
So
is the other one.
Yep.
Oh.
So you're kind of compounding things. So a lot of people, like you said, just like, oh, I'm just sitting there, but it's like, okay, like whether you're at a conference or you're commuting into work, it's like what you want to think of is it's not just, okay, I'm showing up there, but what can I do? I always, and this goes back to like, I have a my 3S mobility method, where it's really like, what can you do to kind of front load, like prepare yourself for what you're going to do, and then help with that recovery. And that's really, really helpful. So what I'll tell my clients to do, especially if they're traveling or they're having to do stuff, is make sure that, you know, you're like, I love using like massage balls and stuff like that. And again, you can pack a little lacrosse ball and you'd be shocked. Like I always tell people like, oh, you need to name it. It's going to be your BFF. And they're kind of like, yeah. And they're like, oh my gosh, I love this. Like I like have to hide it from the kids and the dogs, but like I don't leave without this. But you can pack something as simple as a massage ball, a little lacrosse ball. And again, that can be something that you can do when you're on the plane, where you can kind of like put it in your glutes and put it in your back and kind of roll up. I'm a big fan of getting up and up as often as you can on the plane, but make sure that you're doing some of those stretches beforehand. And again, even just carving out that little bit of time before you have your conference in the day, where you're doing some stretching work, you're doing some release work, and through there, you're incorporating some breath work to just center and prepare your body for it, is really, really helpful. And again, too, it will save you. But again, packing something like a ball, you're going on a bathroom break, like literally you can go in the stalls, you can roll out, like, and it will make the difference. And then doing some stretches throughout. And there's a lot of great stretches that you can even just do, you know, in your chair and stuff like that. I think probably the biggest things that tend to get, and you mentioned low back pain, but most sitting tends to be really harsh, kind of upper body, neck, and then your low back, typically because your front of your hips tend to get really tight, your hip flexors tend to get really tight. So there's some easy things that you can do. Like again, the lacrosse ball, you can release that hip flexor. And then you can also do, you know, hip flexor stretches, hamstring stretches, and stuff like that. Those are some really simple things. Again, you can do, again, anytime that you get the break, but just sitting in your chair, you know, doing a figure 4 stretch, or literally like be the person, but like you can so simply just kind of tuck a ball into there or do some things when you're sitting, but it will make the big difference. So take, again, they give you those little breaks, but just to take those little breaks to do the stretches, and it will save you. And again, carving out the time at the end of the day to just do a little program where you're releasing some things, you're doing some stretches, and then you're doing some kind of core activation work into theirs, are really, really important. You'd be shocked at how like that will like just allow you to get through. Because like you said, it's a kind of a marathon day, you know, and you tend to do those back to back. So yeah, that's my suggestion.
I love that you suggested. I love that you mentioned the lacrosse ball. I was literally just rolling out my feet before we got on. Like,
good.
Yes, right before we jumped on. And that and the fascia blaster, the mini, like the face mini fascia blaster, those are the two things that go in my carry-on everywhere I go. Like, lifesavers.
Yeah. And like you said, it doesn't have to be like, I think just like anything, I think people tend to overcomplicate things. But again, it's like these small little increments and these things done consistently. Again, as in business, consistency is so important, but just these little micro things that you can do just consistently over time. You'd be shocked at like what a big difference and how much it actually saves you. And again, I always tell like these are like little deposits that you're kind of putting in your I like to call it your body bank, so that if anything happens, or like you said, you're doing something that's quote unquote stressful, like a conference, it's like you can handle that. Like you've built up all these reserves and there's this resiliency in your body that you can handle that no problem, versus it be like you were already kind of teetering on the edge of kind of something going. And then it was just like, that was the thing. And that's why like being consistent, moving your body, doing all these things, like doing things like I'm a big fan, like my 3 kind of components of my mobility method is like soften. So make sure that you're doing soft tissue work, make sure that you're doing focused stretching, and then making sure that you're doing some stabilization and strengthening work there. Cause it kind of, makes everything kind of all solid and together, and your body kind of feels like it's like congruent and it's not all kind of all over the place.
Got it. So that's your
3S,
mobility.
yeah, 3S mobility method. So the idea is with like the soften is like, you want to think of like everything's all tight and restricted. So it's kind of like you're peeling off your straight jacket of restriction. And then now that you've kind of released some of those muscles, you need to kind of restore the range of motion that you need, because we can only be as strong as we have the mobility that we have to move. And then after you kind of have this mobility, it's always good. You need to kind of retrain your body. Okay, this is how you should be moving with integrity and moving appropriately through that kind of newfound range of motion. Because I think that's a problem sometimes people make. They'll just do one of those things, and then that's why they'll due to weakness or instability, then they'll get things like their joints will go out and they'll get pinched nerves. So it's really important to do all 3 pieces.
Got it. Are there any early warning signs to be aware of?
With like, in regards to in pain? Okay. So I always say like pain is really your body's like check engine light, that there is something going on. There's some kind of underlying kind of issue, imbalance, or compensation going on, even with, injuries and stuff like that. There's been some sort of kind of deficit going on for a period of time, and then it kind of finally shows up. The biggest thing I would say is listen to those kind of still small voices that your body is kind of telling you in through there. Just those little kind of nagging aches or just kind of sorenesses. Pay attention to that. Pay attention to patterns in your body as well. Like you're like, oh, I always get tight on this side. Oh, it always kind of does this thing. Pay attention to those things, because it's probably the biggest mistake people make is they ignore it. And the unfortunate thing is like nobody really will attend to it until it kind of gets to the point of being debilitated, when it doesn't have to get that bad. And sometimes, unfortunately, with the body, even these things that are seem insignificant, it actually is something more significant going on, and it can escalate pretty quickly from being an annoying, like, inconvenience and a nag, to actually accelerating to like, okay, now you actually need surgery type of a thing. So my biggest thing would be, don't ignore the early warning signs, even those little aches and pains, even those somewhat like annoyances, and then know the patterns in your body. Pay attention to the patterns and through there, that if you are noticing things, way that you're favoring your body and through there. And when you are consistently doing kind of my kind of 3S mobility method, I tell people it's like a litmus test, because you're almost like doing a body scan when you're doing soft tissue work, when you're doing stretch work. It really brings to light those imbalances from side to side. So then you can start to question, okay, why are there knots always on this side? Why is it excruciating on this side? Why do I always feel tighter on this side? And then you can kind of say, oh, okay, well, I'm like kind of tilted all the time, or I'm always holding the baby on this side. And those are the type of things to bring the awareness to, because those kind of chronic patterns is why we end up with injury and pain and through there. So it's like being that aware. So when you're continually kind of doing these things, it kind of already preemptively kind of brings to surface some things that you need to be aware of, so you can avoid kind of that like excruciating pain where you're laid out in bed for days on end because you just bent over to pick something up, versus if you were kind of doing stuff all the time, you would notice, oh, my back is tight on that side. Oh, my hamstrings are tighter on that side. So then you would give a little bit of extra love on that side to bring balance to your body.
What's like a schedule or a routine that we can get into?
Okay, so that's like another kind of big thing. I think that's another big mistake where people either think like exercise, it has to be this like all or none, like 60-minute program, versus like, I'm a big fan of like, again, making it work for you. And I'm a big fan too of like I say, kind of like bookending your days where you like can wake up in the morning, do some stretches, do some of this like program. And then again, at the end of the day, after you kind of put your body through tons of sitting or activity or what you ever do, to can kind of like release what's restricted, kind of restore that balance to your body. Because again, that will allow you to sleep better, which again, you'll get the restoration and the healing and everything kind of goes back to its happy baseline. So that's always what I kind of tell people, if they can shoot for some sort of kind of bookending of their day doing stuff, or likewise, sprinkling some of these stretches throughout the day, hitting that reset. So, and again, it doesn't have to take a really long time. I'm a firm believer of that. Like it could honestly take you 10, 15 minutes in the morning, 10, 15 minutes in the afternoon or in the evening there. I mean, and integrate it into your day. Like it's very simple and easy. Again, you want to be present and focused, but like you can do these things. I mean, you have time to watch Netflix. Like I tell people, like these are your TV exercises. Like you can very easily roll, stretch, and do some of these kind of very foundational exercises, which will make a huge difference. And same thing in the morning. It's a great, as you know, like getting your body going. It's also, I mean, I personally use it. It's such a good way just to center your mind and your body and your kind of your intention today when you're going through doing these things like massaging your body. Again, there's the blood flow. There's so many good positive things that happens when you do move your body. And it's a good way just to center your mind, kind of go through how you want your day to kind of unfold and through there. Check in with how your body is. Because if you start to notice these things when you're kind of stretching or moving, you're like, ooh, that's interesting. You can be aware of that when you are standing at your desk, when you're sitting, when you're having to, show up, that you're mindful, okay, that was a little sore or tight. I'm going to be especially mindful of how I'm moving or not moving through the day. So that's another reason why I like that kind of like bookended approach. And then just kind of, as I say, like just sprinkle a stretch or two. I call them like your bathroom break exercises or your water break exercises. Every single time you get up to go to the bathroom, do a stretch. Every single time you don't get up to grab a glass of water or anything, do a stretch or two. And it doesn't have to take any more than 30, 45 seconds, but just that reset makes a huge, huge difference.
Absolutely. I love that. Just start your morning. How about that? Start your morning with your lacrosse ball and listen to the She's Making an Impact podcast. And then
there
you're
you
getting
go.
your
I love
personal
that.
development and your mobility all at the same time.
I love it. No, it's so true. And there is also so many studies of when you're moving your body, you're able to kind of really take in what you're learning. It kind of, once you layer on those different kind of the kinesthetic with that. So again, yes, you'll really take in all the good juicy nuggets that Rachel gives you.
Amazing. So you've mentioned some things like the figure 4 stretching, and I know you have like a bunch of other like chest openers and things for people that have no idea what that means. Do you have any like video tutorials or things that can help that?
Yeah. So I would definitely say, so I put together a free guide that kind of takes and walks you through a lot of the different frameworks that I have. So the 3S Mobility Method, and really breaks down, okay, what does that mean? And also why is it so important? And then I've included kind of little taster videos up for that. So I'll take you guys through. It's really delicious. Speaking of kind of neck and sitting, but an upper body kind of routine. So it takes you through kind of a way to release upper body restriction. It's kind of my upper body program. And then I'll take you through like a stretch flow in through there. So I have a full body stretch flow. And then I take people through just like a core exercise program in through there so that they can do some of these things. Yeah. So that's kind of my freebie. It's the pain-free body blueprint. So, and they can just go to painfreebodyblueprint.com and get that. So yeah, they'll get the videos, they'll get kind of all kind of a step-by-step walkthrough. And again, within, under, 7 minutes, they can just kind of go through that program and just, it's super helpful. Like I had a couple people, she's like, oh my gosh, I did this. And she's like, my neck pain that's been going on for years. She's like, I literally did this. And she's like, it is fine. And another person, she's like, this is delicious. This is so good. And I was like, I know, it's like, a lot of people, I think, overcomplicate and think that they do these crazy, like super fancy things and all this, all this stuff that's like being out there, like hit and this. And I'm like, really, there's so much beauty and power in just the basics and these foundational exercises. Like I have people like, it's just like I tell them, it's like brushing your teeth. Like once it becomes ingrained to your life, it makes a world of difference. I run into, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm like still doing this program every day. And they're like, I haven't had any issues, no knee pain, no back pain, no shoulder pain. I'm like, yeah, because it's a balanced, comprehensive kind of program that you need to do that kind of balances naturally our body's anatomy, that we tend to be tighter and rounded forward. And then also just like you said too, that we're becoming increasingly sedentary, which is honestly the root cause of so many of these issues. It's just because we're sitting way too much. We weren't meant to sit as much as we do.
Absolutely. Okay, so that guide is amazing. Let's talk the resources that we mentioned. So a lacrosse ball, you can get that on Amazon. A standing desk. It's a Vera desk.
Yeah, I love the Vera desk. Yeah.
It's fancy schmancy and really heavy. When I did my first standing desk, I got 2 boards at like a hardwood store and just nailed those in. And I had like my computer on one, and I don't know if I can show on video. I had like a little ergonomic stand.
Oh yeah.
I have no idea what brand that is, but this goes with me everywhere. It's so heavy, so it goes in my carry-on, but it's just like a little stand to put my laptop on. So lacrosse ball, what else did we mention? And
so lacrosse balls are great. And those honestly are so good because you can literally do your full body. I mean, foam rollers are great too. They have collapsible foam rollers, which are wonderful, which are nice. They make smaller ones that you can actually collapse and take into your carry-on. But I love the lacrosse ball. Sometimes you can see like the double peanut lacrosse balls, which I'm a big fan of too. Veridesk is great. A good chair, Herman Miller makes a really fabulous chair. Again, too, they tend to be a little bit more on the pricier side, but again, it's an investment well worth it. And they last forever, but those are absolutely fabulous chairs. So those would be kind of the big things. And honestly, I mean, you don't have to get super fancy. And for like many of the programs and like the toolkit and everything, it's like you can really use like bands, TheraBands, all that stuff. It's like you don't need to have to go invest, especially since everybody's locked down. They're like, that you can really get in a good workout and give your body the balance that it needs and it's craving, with simple things like a lacrosse ball, a foam roller, some, ankle weights and some like resistance bands. You can really have a good program, and that's not a huge investment. And the lovely thing is it doesn't take up a lot of space too.
That's exactly what I use, because like moving to Africa, I wasn't able to bring like free weights in my suitcase or anything. I have a yoga mat, 2 resistance bands, some little booty bands, my lacrosse ball. And I use a water jug for certain things too. So I'm like, how could I get creative? I'll just use a water jug.
It's like you don't need a whole lot of stuff. And the good thing is with using a lot of that stuff, you actually tend to do things like more of like functional exercises where they actually are replicating what you need to do on your day to day, which is really important. I think that's another kind of mistake with a lot of the programs, like with the HIIT and a lot of things coming out, is they're not necessarily like training your body for what you need to go through on a daily basis. Like I always tell people, it's all well and good what you're doing when you're exercising, but how does it translate to like the other 23 hours in your day? And that's another big mistake I see, is like most people tend to train in that single plane in the front side, and there's not a whole lot of balance. You're not doing things like, you're not working 360, you're not doing combined movements in through there. So when you do those things, your body hasn't been trained to do things. You're not, working through those motions. And that's why people will get injured too. So having that balance. So that's why I personally love like Pilates and through that. I'm a big fan of that too.
Yep.
So, and that's a lot
Agreed.
of work.
I learned that the hard way after doing an insanity style workout, dislocated my ribs, and yeah, that was fun. So I don't do any of those anymore.
Yeah, no, I'm a huge fan of like, and that's a nice thing because it's again that balance too of not, you don't want to overtax your body. And I think that's when, you know, especially with what we're seeing in society, it's like, okay, well, you have to, you know, lose the weight like yesterday, or you have to do this versus being like, okay, this is a journey and honoring your body. And that I go over this in the freebie as well. But that's a big thing where people aren't necessarily doing the exercises that are appropriate for their body. And then the other downside of kind of this overexertion is it just overwhelms your body with like too much cortisol, which will actually have counter effects through there, where it's actually, you know, making you hang on to the you know, the extra weight, or I mean, it just throws your hormones off, focus, everything, and actually how your body metabolizes and the whole physiology. So there is that balance. So that's why, again, I'm not a fan of those crazy intense, you know, exercises, because they actually, and it's just not sustainable, and that's where you tend to see injuries through there. I just like, whenever I go into classes, I'm like, oh my gosh, like they should not be doing this. They should not be doing this. And I mean, really knowing like the purpose, your end goal of that, and doing what's correct and appropriate for your body for that day. I mean, our bodies change from day to day. I mean, so that's where it's also kind of being in tune with your body, doing that kind of booked end program so you can go in and be safe when you actually are intentionally working out. So yeah, functional exercises, body weight exercises, those are safe to do every day. And I'm such a big fan of those.
Cool. I ask everyone who comes on the show, what's one of your favorite books?
Ooh, my favorite books. Okay, I would say the Bible. And then I just got done reading Traction was awesome. I love Traction. I can say a couple. So, and then Atomic Habits was fabulous. And then Brandon Burchard's book, High Performance Habits, was really, really, I loved that. I loved all of those. Those are like, I would say those are kind of my top three. I could go on and on. I have so many. I'm like constantly reading. I love to read books. So I just like devour them. But yeah, that's where I say those would be kind of my top three for right now. Yeah.
I love it. Where can we connect with you?
Oh, yeah. Wonderful. So I would love to see and welcome everybody I have a private Facebook group, which is a lot of fun. So it's the Pain Free and Powerful Project. And I go live every week and do live trainings. Like today, I'm doing a live training talking about good squat form and a lot of the mistakes people make with that. And then also I teach movement classes kind of on a weekly basis and through there. So we go through these type of stretching and mobility work, as well as it's a lot of functional and kind of Pilates infused exercises in through there. So I would love to see everybody in there, welcome you there. So yeah, the Pain Free and Powerful Project is probably the best way to kind of find me and really kind of I'll answer questions and anything like that. And then I'm also on Instagram at just Dr. Yvonne Castillo, and pretty much Facebook, everything's always Dr. Yvonne Castillo, that you can come by me if you have any questions. So shoot me a DM if you have any questions about your desk setup or what you should do or how to kind of survive long summits or conferences or anything, or how you can use kind of this kind of framework to really, like you said, up level your performance into there, and how you can really set yourself up where you don't have to wait for kind of the bottom to drop out when you're in the middle of a launch or as you're trying to lead a team. Nobody loves a short, snappy boss or partner. So again, your health is, I mean, if you don't have your health, it's like, it stops there oftentimes. And don't wait and don't ignore those little warning signs. Yep. That would be my other kind of big takeaway. Don't ignore those warning signs, and you're worth it. It's an investment, and you'd be surprised as you notice too, is just how much you can up level when you are healthy, when you have that energy and you're not weighed down by like fear and worry about, okay, what's going on.
Absolutely. Yvonne, thank you so much for being on the show.
Gosh, thank you for having me. It was so much fun.
Yes. Well, everyone go check out her guide, download all of her stuff. Yvonne, you're amazing. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.